In Greek and Roman mythology, few figures loom as large as the Cyclopes. Imagined as colossal giants, their defining feature is a single eye. It is a window into a nature that is powerful and alien. Their stories are woven into ancient legend, appearing in foundational texts. They represent raw, untamed power, defying civilization. They are depicted as savage brutes or architects of divine might. Their legacy is a complex tapestry that evolved over centuries. The Cyclopes are far from a monolithic entity. Their character shifts depending on the storyteller. Hesiod presents them as sons of Uranus and Gaia. Homer depicts them as uncivilized shepherds. This exploration will delve into the multifaceted world of the Cyclopes. We will examine the divine smiths, the savage shepherds and the legendary masons. The name Cyclops or Cyclopes is descriptive. It's derived from ancient Greek, from kuklos, meaning circle, and ops, meaning eye. Kuklops literally means circle eye or round eye. This points to the single, unforgettable eye. Hesiod connects the name to the one circular eye in their foreheads. The visual horror of the eye was the primary concept. The name is the key that sets them apart. Some suggest a link to the sun, connecting them to light and fire. The primary meaning of circle eye remains most powerful. It's a warning, description, and legend. The name evokes a startling image, retaining its power to evoke monstrous grandeur. The entire weight of their myth is contained in that single, unblinking gaze. The ancient sources reveal at least 3 distinct strains of Cyclopean lore. First, the Hesiodic Cyclopes, divine craftsmen who arm the Olympian gods. In contrast, the Homeric Cyclopes are brutish shepherds like Polyphemus, who scorn the laws of gods and men. The third tradition, Cyclopean wall builders explaining the massive stone walls of Mycenaean fortresses. These 3 faces demonstrate the adaptability of the Cyclops myth, blending over time into complex figures. Understanding these faces is essential to appreciating the evolution of this enduring figure. Before Zeus, primordial forces shaped the cosmos. From Uranus and Gaia came the Cyclopes, giants embodying raw elemental power. Hesiod names them Brontes, Steropes and Arges, personifications of thunder, lightning and brightness. They were not monsters but celestial fire, offspring of sky and earth, older than the Olympian gods. Set apart by their single eye, a symbol of focused power. Master artisans with divine skill. They were the storm, destined to forge weapons for Zeus's new order. Fearing the power of his children, Uranus imprisoned the Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires deep within Tartarus, causing Gaia immense pain. Gaia, desperate for revenge, enlisted her son Cronus, who overthrew Uranus but kept the Cyclopes imprisoned out of his own paranoia. The Cyclopes remained chained in darkness until Zeus, seeking allies against Cronus, freed them on Gaia's advice. Their liberation was both an act of compassion and a strategic move, arming the Olympians for the coming war. The Cyclopes' release marked a turning point in the cosmic struggle, setting the stage for the rise of the Olympian gods. From the depths of Tartarus, the key to the gods' victory was finally unleashed. Grateful to Zeus, the Cyclopes pledged their loyalty and unleashed their legendary craftsmanship. In their fiery forges, they created the thunderbolt for Zeus, the trident for Poseidon, and the helm of darkness for Hades. These weapons defined the gods' powers. Thunder for the sky, trident for the sea, and invisibility for the underworld. The Cyclopes' gifts shifted the balance, ensuring the Olympians' victory over the Titans. Their creations established the cosmic order, dividing the universe among the 3 brothers. The Cyclopes became kingmakers, their skill echoing through the new era of divine rule. Far from monsters, they were the architects of the Olympian world. The Cyclopes' story takes a tragic turn after the Olympians' victory. When Zeus kills Asclepius for defying the natural order, Apollo, unable to strike Zeus, takes vengeance on the Cyclopes who forged the fatal thunderbolt. Apollo slays the divine smiths, ending the lives of those who armed the gods. Zeus, furious at the loss of his artisans, punishes Apollo with a year of mortal servitude. The Cyclopes' forges fall silent, their creative power lost forever. Their fate is a somber reminder of the unpredictable, often unjust, nature of divine politics. Loyalty and genius could not shield them from the wrath of the gods. Homer's Odyssey presents a new vision. Cyclopes as savage, lawless shepherds, the antithesis of Greek civilization. They live in isolation, each in his own cave, with no laws, assemblies, or sense of community. Their land is fertile, but they lack agriculture, shipbuilding, and curiosity. Trapped in primitive ignorance, hospitality is unknown, strangers are met with violence, not welcome. The Cyclopes are giants, more like mountains than men, living by brute force alone. Their world is chaos, a terrifying mirror of what humanity could be without order. Against this backdrop, Odysseus's ordeal will test his cunning against pure, lawless monstrosity. Odysseus and his men, seeking shelter, enter a giant's cave filled with livestock and cheese. Ignoring his crew's pleas to flee, Odysseus waits to meet the cave's master, hoping for hospitality. Instead, they face Polyphemus, a monstrous Cyclops who traps them inside with a massive stone. Polyphemus scoffs at the gods and, in a brutal display, devours 2 men for supper. The next morning, he repeats the horror, eating 2 more before leaving to tend his flocks. Odysseus and his dwindling crew are left desperate, trapped in darkness. Brute strength is useless. Only Odysseus's cunning offers hope for escape. The stage is set for a legendary battle of wits against a force of primal savagery. Trapped, Odysseus plots their escape. He spots the Cyclops' massive club. Odysseus directs his men to sharpen it to a fine point and harden it in the fire. Odysseus offers the giant potent wine. Intoxicated, Polyphemus asks his guest's name. Odysseus replies, "Nomen." The giant collapses into a stupor. They drive the red-hot stake into the Cyclops' eye. He roars in agony. When other Cyclops ask who is hurting him, Polyphemus cries, "No man is killing me!" The others leave him to his fate. Odysseus lashes his men to the undersides of rams while he clings to the lead ram. They escape the cave of death. Having escaped, Odysseus taunts the blinded giant, Polyphemus. The enraged Cyclops hurls a massive hilltop into the sea. Odysseus reveals his true identity, and Polyphemus curses him, praying to his father, Poseidon, for vengeance. From this moment on, Odysseus is hunted by the wrath of Poseidon, his journey home transformed into a decade-long ordeal. The encounter with the Cyclops becomes the pivotal event that shapes the remainder of the Odyssey, showcasing both the hero's greatest strengths and his most profound weakness, his pride. The savage shepherd ensures the hero's path will be paved with sorrow. Beyond divine forges, a third identity for the Cyclops emerged from the landscape of ancient Greece, master builders with superhuman strength. This belief was born from the awe that later generations felt when they looked upon the monumental ruins of Mycenaean civilization. The fortresses were enclosed by walls built from enormous limestone boulders, some weighing many tons. The sheer scale seemed impossible for ordinary humans, leading to the belief that only giants could have lifted such stones. These became known as Cyclopean walls, attributed to the mighty one-eyed beings of myth. The legend transformed these giants into the legendary founders of Greece's heroic age. The earliest and most influential portraits of the Cyclopes come from the 2 titans of archaic Greek poetry, Hesiod and Homer. Writing around 700 BC, they established the 2 foundational and largely contradictory traditions that would shape all future interpretations. In his Theogony, a grand poem detailing the genealogy of the gods, Hesiod introduces the first type, the divine craftsmen. He names them Brontes, Steropes, and Arges, and establishes their primordial lineage as sons of Uranus and Gaia. For Hesiod, these are not monsters but essential figures in the cosmic drama, whose skill at the forge is instrumental in establishing the Olympian order. They are beings of immense power and purpose. Hesiod's account is systematic and theological. He explains their imprisonment by their father Uranus, their subsequent confinement by the Titan Cronus, and their eventual liberation by Zeus. Their immediate response is one of gratitude, expressed through their craft. They forged the thunderbolt, trident, and cap of invisibility, the iconic weapons that enable the Olympians to win the Titanomachy and divide the cosmos among themselves. In this telling, the Cyclopes are defined by their skill, their loyalty, and their fundamental role in creating the divine world order. Their single eye is not a mark of savagery, but of focused creative power, making them the ultimate artisans of the gods. In stark contrast, Homer's Odyssey presents a completely different kind of Cyclops. The ninth book of his epic introduces a lawless tribe of one-eyed shepherds, with the infamous Polyphemus taking center stage. These Cyclopes embody everything the Greeks feared and disdained. They are uncivilized, impious and brutally inhospitable. They live in isolated caves, lack any form of government or community, and have no knowledge of agriculture or shipbuilding. Homer's focus is not on their cosmic role, but on their monstrous and primitive nature, using them as a terrifying obstacle for his hero Odysseus to overcome through cunning rather than strength. The difference between these two portrayals is profound. Hesiod's Cyclopes are creators who help establish divine law. Homer's are destroyers who scorn it. One group is central to the history of the gods, while the other lives on the fringes of the world, ignored by gods and men alike. These two foundational texts created a powerful duality in the Cyclops myth. All subsequent writers and artists would have to contend with these conflicting images, either choosing to follow one tradition or attempting to blend the two, creating a more complex figure that was both a skilled craftsman and a dangerous, savage giant. The stage was set by these two poetic masters. In the 5th century before Christ, the great Athenian playwright Euripides took the rich, conflicting traditions of the Cyclopes and adapted them for the stage. In his works, we see a clever blending of the Hesiodic and Homeric accounts. In his tragedy Alcestis, he refers to the later myth where Apollo, enraged by the death of his son Asclepius, slaughters the Cyclopes for having forged the fatal thunderbolt. This directly follows the Hesiodic tradition of the Cyclopes as divine smiths in the service of Zeus. Here, they are victims of divine politics, important enough for their murder to result in the punishment of a major god like Apollo, underscoring their status as valuable artisans. However, Euripides also wrote the only complete satyr play that has survived from antiquity, titled simply Cyclops. This play dramatizes the famous encounter between Odysseus and Polyphemus from Homer's Odyssey. It is a comedic and grotesque retelling, but one that introduces a significant new detail. It firmly places the land of the Cyclopes in Sicily, near the volcanic fires of Mount Etna. This geographical association would become incredibly important in later traditions, as it provided a physical location that could logically house both the savage shepherd of Homer's tale and the fiery forges of the Hesiodic smiths, beginning the process of merging the two separate myths into a single, cohesive narrative. 2 centuries later, in the 3rd century before Christ, the Hellenistic poet Callimachus further developed this fused tradition. Writing for a sophisticated audience at the Library of Alexandria, Callimachus depicted the Cyclopes as assistants to the smith god Hephaestus. In his hymn to Artemis, he describes the Cyclopes working at Hephaestus's anvil, toiling in their subterranean forge. Callimachus explicitly places their workshop on the island of Lipari, one of the Aeolian islands north of Sicily, another volcanically active region. Here, they are shown crafting divine items like Artemis's bow and arrows and the Trojans' horse trough, reinforcing their role as master craftsmen. Callimachus's portrayal is vivid and detailed. He names them Brontes and Steropes, using Hesiod's names, but describes them working under the direction of Hephaestus, a detail not present in the original myth. His Cyclopes are immense, like mountains, and their work shakes the surrounding islands. By placing these Hesiodic smiths in a volcanic Sicilian setting, the same general location as Euripides' Polyphemus, Callimachus helped solidify the idea that all Cyclopes, whether craftsmen or shepherds, belonged to the same tribe and inhabited the same fiery remote part of the world. The once separate traditions were now becoming inextricably linked in the literary imagination. The Cyclopes myth transitioned from Greek to Roman culture, refined by poets like Virgil in the Aeneid. Virgil depicted them both as smiths for Vulcan, crafting thunderbolts, and as terrifying, blood-drinking monsters. Later, Apollodorus systematically recounted their parentage and gifts to the gods. Nonnus, in the Dionysiaca, portrayed them as warriors allied with Dionysus. Across centuries, the Cyclopes remained potent figures in literary tradition. Homer's Polyphemus, a figure of terror, wasn't always one-dimensional. Later, writers explored his personality, imagining his life beyond Odysseus. This reflects sophistication in Greek thought, where even monsters had motivations. Polyphemus, a being of power and isolation, became a candidate for reimagining. His single eye, once monstrous, symbolized his unique perspective. His violence could be seen as a desperate reaction to his solitude being invaded. The monster was given a soul. He explored themes of love and loneliness, transforming into a complex giant. Polyphemus's surprising transformation was his reinvention as a comic, lovesick figure, popularized by poet Philoxenus and immortalized by Ovid. The fearsome giant is depicted as hopelessly in love with the sea nymph Galatea. He becomes a source of pastoral comedy, composing love songs and trying to make himself presentable. Galatea, however, is in love with a handsome shepherd named Aces. Discovering the lovers together, Polyphemus flies into a jealous rage, hurling a mountain at Aces, killing him. Aces' blood transforms into a river and he becomes its spirit. This reframes Polyphemus into a tragic figure capable of both immense love and violence. In some less common mythological traditions, the story of Polyphemus and Galatea did not end in tragedy and rejection. A few alternative accounts suggested that the giant's romantic pursuits were ultimately successful. In these versions, Galatea eventually returns his affection, and the two are married. This narrative turn completes the giant's transformation, moving him from a monstrous outcast to a settled husband and eventually a father. This version of the myth, though not as widespread as the tale of unrequited love, provided a way to integrate the famous Cyclops into the genealogical histories that were so important to the ancient world. From this imagined union of Polyphemus and Galatea, several children were said to have been born. According to the historian Timaeus, writing in the 4th century BC, their sons were named Celtus, Illyrius, and Gallus. These names are highly significant as they are the eponyms, the legendary founders of major European peoples, the Celts, the Illyrians, and the Gauls, or Galatians. By making these powerful barbarian nations the descendants of a Cyclops, Greek writers were engaging in a form of mythological ethnography. It was a way of explaining the origins of foreign peoples who existed on the fringes of the known Greek world, often portraying them as having a wild, powerful, and somewhat monstrous ancestry. This genealogical connection served a dual purpose. On one hand, it could be seen as a way of insulting these rival peoples, suggesting they were descended from a brutish, one-eyed giant. It implied that their perceived barbarism was an inherited trait passed down from their monstrous ancestor. On the other hand, it could also be a way of acknowledging their formidable strength and power. To be descended from a son of Poseidon and a powerful giant like Polyphemus was to have a lineage of immense, almost divine might. It explained their martial prowess and their status as significant forces in the ancient European landscape. This final and perhaps strangest transformation shows the incredible adaptability of the Polyphemus myth. He had journeyed from a cannibalistic monster in Homer's epic to a lovesick comedian in pastoral poetry, and finally to the legendary progenitor of entire nations in the works of historians and mythographers. Each stage of his evolution reflects the changing needs and perspectives of the storytellers who adopted him. His character became a canvas upon which the Greeks and Romans could project their ideas about civilization and barbarism, love and violence, and the very origins of the peoples who lived beyond their borders. The lonely giant of the cave had cast a surprisingly long shadow over history. Ancient writers sought a location for the Cyclopes, a place for fiery forges and rustic caves. From the 5th century BC, Sicily and the Aeolian Islands became their home. This region's geological activity with volcanoes like Mount Etna offered a mythological explanation for the Cyclopes. Volcanic activity was seen as the Cyclopes at work, forging thunderbolts for Zeus. This transformed Sicily into a living piece of mythology. Sicily's rugged interior and pastoral history made it a believable home for Polyphemus. The volcanic isles became their homeland, where creation and savagery existed side by side. One compelling theory suggests the Cyclops myth originated from the discovery of prehistoric fossil skulls, specifically skulls of Pleistocene dwarf elephants. The large nasal cavity in the center of the skull could have been mistaken for a single giant eye socket. To those unfamiliar with elephants, it would be logical to assume it was the skull of a one-eyed humanoid. This theory is supported by the prevalence of these fossils on Mediterranean islands like Sicily and Malta, where Cyclops myths are geographically rooted. Thus, the Cyclops legend may be rooted in a misunderstanding of ancient remains. Beyond fossils, other theories explore the Cyclops myth's symbolic origins. Some connect them to ancient blacksmith guilds, while others link the single eye to volcanism, or even a rare birth defect. Whatever the source, the Cyclops remains a potent, endlessly reinterpreted symbol. From the dawn of creation, the Cyclopes have proven to be enduring figures in mythology. They began as cosmic artisans, forging the symbols of divine authority, yet they were also seen as terrifying savages. In Polyphemus, the Cyclops became the embodiment of lawless brutality. A third identity emerged: the legendary builders of Mycenaean citadels. They were the architects of history itself. These roles demonstrate that the Cyclops is a multifaceted symbol. It is this complexity that has given the Cyclops myth its incredible richness, ensuring its place in the pantheon of immortal legends. The story of the Cyclopes did not end with the fall of Rome. Their singular, unforgettable image has journeyed through the centuries, continuing to capture the human imagination in art, literature, and film. The giant's unblinking eye remains a potent symbol, instantly recognizable and capable of evoking wonder and dread. From medieval bestiaries that catalogued the monsters of the world to Renaissance paintings that explored the dramatic tales of Polyphemus and Galatea, the Cyclops has been a constant presence. Each era has reinterpreted the myth to suit its own tastes and anxieties, proving the timelessness of these ancient figures. In the modern era, the Cyclops continues to loom large in popular culture, often serving as a formidable obstacle in fantasy novels, video games, and blockbuster films. The core elements of the myth, the immense strength, the single eye, and the often primitive nature, are endlessly recyclable, providing a ready-made monster that carries the weight of thousands of years of legend. The dramatic encounter between Odysseus and Polyphemus, in particular, has been retold and reenacted countless times, its themes of intelligence versus brute force resonating as strongly today as they did in ancient Greece. The Cyclops has become a permanent fixture in our collective vocabulary of the monstrous. The possible origins of the myth also contribute to its lasting appeal, offering a fascinating intersection of legend and science. The theory that the myth was born from the discovery of dwarf elephant skulls provides a tantalizing glimpse into how our ancestors made sense of unexplained wonders. It connects the fantastical creature to a real, tangible object, grounding the legend in a moment of discovery and misinterpretation. This potential link between paleontology and mythology adds a layer of intellectual curiosity to the story, reminding us that even the most outlandish tales may have roots in the natural world. Ultimately, the Cyclopes survive because they embody fundamental and powerful archetypes. They are the untamed wilderness, the raw power of nature personified in the volcano's eye. They are the lonely outcast, misunderstood and driven to violence, as seen in the later tales of a lovesick Polyphemus. They are the monstrous other, a reflection of our fears of those who live outside our society. Whether as divine craftsmen, savage cannibals, or tragic lovers, the Cyclopes offer a rich tapestry of narrative possibilities. Their single eye continues to gaze out from the depths of myth, inviting each new generation to find its own meaning in their ancient and powerful story.